Tonight, WWE presents Extreme Rules from the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. Of course, the main event for the Extreme Rules pay-per-view is an Extreme Rules match. Who would have thought it? For the Universal Championship, which will see Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against the Demon King himself, Finn Balor. This will be the first time that Finn Balor competes as the Demon since 2019. We're talking over 2 years. The first time that Balor has competed in his alter ego since match in 2019. It's such a weird pay-per-view this tonight. There's only 6 matches announced for the show. And what this reminds me of, just the pay-per-view in general, and we will get into this match, but the pay-per-view in general, is that they had this a couple of times prior to the pandemic. Once it got to like September, October, and they had this big show that they were going to be doing in Saudi Arabia, whether it was Crown Jewel, whether it was whatever it was, the pay-per-views around it just become totally irrelevant. A couple of times, you would have Crown Jewel on one day in October, and then like 3 days later, you'd have another pay-per-view, which would be like Hell in a Cell or something like that. And it kind of, this is what it feels like. You've got some matches announced, some big matches announced, but it just feels like a very forgetful event. And the reason I say that is because we're going into a main event tonight for the Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor, and we know the outcome. And we know the outcome for most Roman Reigns matches anyway, right now, because Roman Reigns will always retain the Universal Championship because he should. There is nobody currently on the SmackDown roster or just in WWE in general that is, I think, hot enough to take the Universal title off of Roman Reigns, or is Roman Reigns' act hasn't got stale right now to a point where it's like, okay, he probably needs to drop the title. That's just not the case right now. So that it's predictable in that sense anyway that Roman Reigns is going to retain tonight, but it's also predictable because we know that Roman Reigns is going to be facing Brock Lesnar next month. Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, not even just the fact that the storyline's been ongoing, and it's been ongoing since SummerSlam, since Brock Lesnar returned, and every couple of weeks they throw in a Brock Lesnar line on SmackDown whereby it's Roman Reigns saying to Paul Heyman, oh, can I trust you? Or did you know that Brock Lesnar was going to be at SummerSlam? Or it's Brock coming back going, why didn't you tell Roman Reigns I was going to be back at SummerSlam, and all that kind of stuff. And there's this sort of seed of dissension, whether or not whose side is Paul Heyman truly on. So that's ongoing. So we knew that Reigns versus Brock was happening anyway. We knew that was happening anyway. But now they've confirmed it. They've announced it. It's announced for the show. It's announced for Crown Jewel in October. We know that Roman Reigns is going to be facing Brock Lesnar. And I know that they've done the caveat of, well, the match is going to happen anyway. It's just a case of, is it going to be for the Universal Championship or not? Because if Finn Balor beats Roman Reigns tonight, then it's just going to be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and it's not going to be for the Universal Championship. I credit WWE for at least trying to put the element of sort of doubt of, we're trying to cover all the bases here. This match is important, but it's not. It's not. This match, and it was the case since even technically when this feud began before SummerSlam, is that this match with Finn Balor and Roman Reigns is just filler. It's just filler so that Roman has something to do after the John Cena match and before the Brock Lesnar match. It's a filler feud. It's a good spot for Finn to be in because he gets a main event, he gets a payday, he gets featured on television. But make no mistake, just has been the case for everyone during this Roman Reigns championship reign of all of the opponents he's faced, whether they've been, how high profile they've been, the end goal is to get Roman more over, to get more heat on the tribal chief. Everyone that's faced Roman Reigns, it's been to get heat on Roman Reigns because eventually they want to get to a point where Roman Reigns feels like this ginormous, gigantic megastar, and then they can eventually do the match between Reigns and the Rock at WrestleMania. Now, I don't think that's going to happen next year, maybe the year after, but that's the plan. Reigns essentially is going to beat everyone until he faces The Rock, and then he'll beat The Rock too, because Roman Reigns is the guy in WWE right now, and he should be. I'm not saying he shouldn't, by the way. He is the guy, because he's the biggest star they've got. Monday proved that on Raw. They did a decent number on Raw this past week, and that's just because Roman Reigns was on the show. That's all they've got right now, WWE. So every time someone comes back, whether it's John Cena, he came back specifically to put Roman Reigns over. When Edge worked with Roman Reigns, it was specifically to put Roman Reigns over, whether it was at WrestleMania, whether it was at Money in the Bank, rather. It was all to put Roman Reigns over. And that's the case here. Roman Reigns being Finn Balor isn't a big deal. They did it on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago. But Roman Reigns beating the Demon King, now that is a big deal. That's another notch on his post, isn't it? That's another notch, another impressive notch for Roman Reigns, that he's this dominant world champion that nobody can beat him. Nobody. Not even John Cena, not even Edge, not even Daniel Bryan, not even the Demon King. And then I think he'll probably beat Brock Lesnar at Crown Jewel, so he'll say not even Brock Lesnar either. Not even Goldberg when they eventually do that match again, which they will. They'll want to do it because they didn't do it at WrestleMania last year. The storyline when it comes to Roman Reigns right now, the overarching storyline, is that Reigns will beat everyone. Everyone. And it does make you kind of wonder, like, where is the end game of that? Because I think the end game is obviously the match with The Rock, but Roman Reigns wins that one, because that'll be The Rock's probably final pro wrestling match. So where is the end game? Because for me, the heel's sole purpose, in my opinion, is to get a babyface over. That's how pro wrestling works. You build up the heel, and then the heel has so much heat, and then eventually a babyface has to come along and beat him. That's or her. That's how pro wrestling has worked since the beginning of time. But where is that babyface? I don't think they know who that babyface is at this point. And I think that point of that babyface coming along to beat Roman Reigns is so far off at this point that I don't even think they're considering that. What they're considering right now is we just need more opponents. We need more opponents for Reigns because we need more people for him to beat, essentially. So that's why Finn Balor and the Demon King is being brought out for this one. It's because, again, it's a transition feud. So it's a transition of, okay, Roman needs something to do after facing Cena and then facing Brock. There's a pay-per-view we need to sell. There's tickets we need to sell. There's subscriptions we want people to have. So what do? Reigns versus Balor would have been fine, but the Demon King coming back feels like a bigger deal. That can sell a pay-per-view, that can sell tickets, that can sell subscriptions, and most importantly, barely anyone's defeated the Demon King. I think Samoa Joe has. I think that's about it. Only Samoa Joe has defeated the Demon King, so again, that's very impressive. If you're going to look at achievements for Roman Reigns, that's very impressive. So that's what they're going to be going with. They're going to be saying, look, Roman Reigns did it again. He did it again. He absolutely defeated the Demon King. Now, when it comes to Finn Balor, what will he do after that? I don't know. I don't know. I think, considering the stipulation here, and I might be wrong, but I think considering the stipulation here, what they're probably going to do is, like with everything with Roman Reigns matches, is the Usos are going to get involved. Somehow the Usos are going to get involved, and I think that will then lead to Reigns getting the victory, because you have to remember, was it SmackDown 2 weeks ago? Finn Balor and Big E defeated the Usos. Technically, they're number one contenders for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship, so you could certainly do a match. You could absolutely do a match which is Finn Balor and Big E versus the Usos. I don't know if they'll go in that direction, but they might. I think, obviously, this past Monday, they continued to plant the seeds for what's going to be coming up at Survivor Series this year, which is the Bloodline and the New Day. They did the six-man tag Monday night on Raw. We're going to get Roman Reigns versus Big E at Survivor Series, and I think that maybe the New Day, I don't know what they'll do in terms of the tag titles, because at the moment it would actually be RK Bro versus the Usos, which I'm very interested in seeing, actually. But those seeds are certainly planted there, so I don't know what Finn Balor would do after this. And I tell you what, I don't think WWE knows, because again, it's not about Finn Balor right now. It's about Roman Reigns. That is the priority. Now, I know some people are saying, could we see an appearance by Brock Lesnar tonight at Extreme Rules? And absolutely a possibility. I mean, the build to Crown Jewel has already started, but certainly would kick into high effect right now. And if the storyline right now is that you don't really know what side of the fence Paul Heyman really sits on, if the storyline right now is Paul Heyman truly with Roman Reigns like he says he is, or is he truly with Brock Lesnar, maybe tonight would be the night to do the turn and to kick it up, right? In the same vein that they did the SummerSlam angle with Brock Lesnar, why don't they do the same tonight? Why don't you have Roman Reigns defeat Finn Balor, wins the match, maybe some interference by the Usos, maybe whatever, but he wins the match, which again, people expect. He's holding the title high above his head after the match, and then what happens once again? Out comes Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar comes out. Paul Heyman looks shocked. He's like, what? He's here again? And then that's when Heyman, I guess, maybe does the turn. But the issue is, if Heyman turns on Reigns, I think WWE might be concerned that it positions Reigns as a babyface, which they don't want to do. Brock Lesnar is the babyface in this situation. Brock Lesnar is the babyface and Reigns is the heel. That's the dynamic they're looking for right now. Because if Roman Reigns is the babyface and Brock's the heel again, we've seen it. We've seen it a million times. And we have no interest in seeing it. I have no interest in seeing Reigns as the babyface, Brock as the heel once again, because we saw it time and time and time again. And the last time we saw it, nobody cared anymore. Nobody cared. But the complete different dynamic in terms of the characters that we have right now, that's very interesting. And I think that's why people are actually quite excited about this Brock-Reigns match at Crown Jewel, because the dynamics have just changed completely. Absolutely completely. This version of Roman Reigns is completely different to the Roman Reigns that faced Brock Lesnar before. This version of Brock Lesnar is completely different to the Brock Lesnar that we've seen face Roman Reigns before in the past. Brock Lesnar as a proper babyface, Reigns as a proper heel. That dynamic is just completely reversed. And also, again, this is what I pointed out before, the way that the Roman Reigns matches work now is actually very similar to a Brock Lesnar style of match. Brock Lesnar's matches, when he's facing whoever, basically work as, I'll dominate for 10-15 minutes. I'll just get so much heat on the babyface. The babyface then gets this little flurry of offense, hits his finish, hits some big moves, 1-2 kick out, 1-2 kick out. Can they win it? Are they going to do the impossible? Brock Lesnar picks him up, F5, game over, done. And that's pretty much what Reigns has done. If you look at most of Reigns' Universal Championship defenses, these epics that he keeps doing, because most of his Universal title matches are going 25-30 minutes, and it'll be the same tonight too, is that he dominates. It's like the match against John Cena at SummerSlam. He will dominate for the first half or so of that match. First 15 minutes, it'll be slow. It'll be very methodical, borderline on boring, and he'll pose and he'll do big forearm shots and clotheslines and all this kind of stuff. And it will be very slow and laborious, and he'll dominate. The babyface then starts to come back, hits some big moves. In Finn Balor's case, he'll probably hit a coup de grace or a 1916, whatever the moves are, all this kind of stuff. He'll hit those. Reigns will kick out, and everyone will be like, "Oh my God, is he going to do it? Is he actually going to do it?" They might actually switch the title. They might switch the title. Then Reigns, spear, 1, 2, 3, game over, around 30 minutes. That's how they'll do it. When they do that, the match with Brock and Roman, that's a bit different because Brock can work a normal match. He can. He just hasn't since like 2012 or something like that, because he just doesn't do that. I mean, the last like normal match that he worked was probably against CM Punk at SummerSlam, because he just has his style. He has his style where he does suplex, they fight back, F5, game over, get out of there. Considering the roles are reversed now, we can't really do that. So are we going to see a situation whereby they're going to go back to what they've done before, where Lesnar dominates for 15 minutes and then Reigns fights back and then Lesnar gets the win or Roman gets the win? Or are they going to flip it around? Are they going to have Reigns dominate on Brock for ages? But I just don't see Brock doing that. But there certainly isn't a Brock can sell. Brock's a pro wrestler at the end of the day. So I think all of that's completely fascinating. So my long-winded point involving that is, if they are going to do the Heyman turn on Roman tonight, they would have to be really careful that they don't position Reigns to be sympathetic. And that's almost why I don't think that, I'm not sure that Paul will turn. I don't know if he'll make the binary choice. I think we could see a situation where both guys just kind of go at it. So maybe Brock does show up tonight, and maybe Brock does hit an F5 on Roman Reigns because he hasn't yet. Maybe he shows up, hits an F5 on Roman Reigns, holds up the Universal Championship and walks off. Paul Heyman's just kind of in a neutral corner. Maybe he is just telling the truth. Maybe Paul Heyman is just telling the truth the whole time. And then during the draft, they'll get separated, which I think will be the case. I think we'll see a situation where Brock Lesnar gets drafted to Raw because they need him, even though he's not going to be there all the time. I just think they'll want to appease the USA Network officials, and they don't need Brock on SmackDown. They just don't. I think Brock would get drafted to Raw, then Heyman will be with Brock on Raw, and then he'll be with Reigns on SmackDown. I think that's the best way to do it. They did it before, when Paul Heyman was with CM Punk and with Brock Lesnar. He just appeared on both shows and didn't really talk about it. Again, I don't know if necessarily you should have Paul Heyman have to choose between them. The issue is that if that's the direction that they're going to go in, and they're going to say, look, Paul, you're probably going to have to, from a storyline point of view, choose between Brock and Roman, he'll have to choose Brock. Because there's just, Brock Lesnar isn't going to be on WWE television without Paul Heyman, because it's just not going to work. They tried it before. They tried it when Brock came back in 2012, and it just didn't work well. He did that whole segment where he was doing a contract signing with John Laurinaitis, and I think John Cena, and the promo was just horrible. And he came back, and reportedly, like, Vince McMahon went, well, that wasn't very good. And Brock basically went, well, get me Paul Heyman then. And then kind of walked off. Like, if you want to make this work, get me Paul Heyman. They got Paul Heyman, and guess what? It's worked ever since. So I don't see them splitting that up, but I also don't think they should split up Roman and Heyman either. You know, you've got a good thing here. Why mess around with that? And I know, again, the storyline purposes might be a case of we're going to try and tell the story of where does Paul Heyman's allegiances lay. But I think in reality, why do they have to say that he lies one of two ways? Why does he have to make the binary choice? Why can't he say just legitimately, or I did know that Brock was going to come back, and I didn't say it because I didn't think he'd show up, or, you know, I do respect you, or whatever. They don't need to do the split, I don't think. But on the flip side of things, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they did go with a split, and they did it tonight. The issue is if Paul Heyman does turn on Roman Reigns, they run a risk of Brock not seeing like a babyface, and Roman Reigns being like having some sympathy, which would then turn him into the babyface, and that's not what they want to do. And in reality, again, this is why I talked about this whole sort of pay-per-view feeling very just there and, you know, avoidable, if you will, is that I've spent the last 7 or 8 minutes talking about the ramifications of Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar and the babyface and heel dynamic and all that kind of stuff. I've been speaking about that for the last however many minutes. Brock's not even guaranteed to be there tonight, and that's not the match we're talking about. We're talking about the Universal Championship match. We're talking about Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor. So that's the problem also. And I think that, you know, there are some people that are saying, oh, it's a great position for Finn Balor to be in. Finally, Finn Balor's in a main event of a pay-per-view. Finally, he's competing for the Universal Championship. That's great. And it is great. And it is great that he's in a featured spot. But don't get me wrong. That the moment he loses tonight, he'll go back to where he was on SmackDown previously. That's in the mid-card or in the upper mid-card. You could absolutely see him feuding with Happy Corbin or whoever. Or suddenly after this going, I'm going to go after the Intercontinental Championship, and Finn Balor versus King Nakamura would be great. But he's not winning. He's not winning tonight, and the sole purpose, in my opinion, that he's putting on the paint and he's doing the music and they're doing the whole supernatural stuff once again, isn't for Finn Balor's benefit, isn't to give the element of doubt of, oh, Finn Balor might win it because he's put on this, he's doing this alter ego, he's doing this, he's doing that. The reason that Finn Balor is tapping into the Demon King alter ego tonight is to put Reigns over, is to give Reigns another achievement, another person to beat. And like I said from the top, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing because there's nobody, absolutely nobody, on the WWE roster, let alone the SmackDown roster, that is anywhere near Roman Reigns right now and has any business taking the title away from Roman Reigns. Reigns is the reason that SmackDown's over 2.2 million viewers every single week. Roman Reigns is the reason that he went to Raw this week and Raw beat AEW Dynamite in the demo. If it wasn't for Roman Reigns on that show, it wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't happen. So WWE knows what they've got, and I think what they're thinking right now is we just got to keep feeding Roman Reigns, and we'll be okay for the time being, and that's what they're going to do. So I'm going to go with Roman Reigns to win this one. It'll be an excellent match. Obviously, it's the main event and probably go about 30 minutes, I would think. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against the Demon King, Finn Balor, tonight at Extreme Rules? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if you haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.